In today's video, we explore a tale of dreams turned into nightmares, as my friend's life takes a terrifying turn that no one saw coming, and uncover the crucial lessons we can learn from her story. Make sure to watch until the end to discover the 5 key takeaways that could make a difference in your life or the life of someone you know. June and I had been inseparable since childhood, forever dreaming of our perfect weddings. We'd spend hours poring over bridal magazines, picking out our favorite dresses, and detailing the most romantic proposals we could imagine. Our friendship was a tapestry of shared laughter and whispered secrets, bound together by the common thread of our dreams. Remember when we used to plan our double wedding? I asked, reminiscing as we sipped coffee in her opulent living room. We'd have matching dresses and walk down the aisle hand in hand. June smiled wistfully. Those were the days, she replied, her voice tinged with a hint of sadness. It was as if some of her old sparkle had dimmed, and I couldn't help but wonder if it had something to do with Robert. Robert was a man who seemed to have stepped straight out of a fairy tale. With his impeccable taste and seemingly endless wealth, he lavished June with gifts that most women could only dream of. Diamond necklaces, designer handbags, and extravagant vacations to exotic locations. Their life together appeared nothing short of perfection. Tell me about your latest trip, I urged, hoping to bring some joy back into her eyes. The pictures you sent are breathtaking. Ah, yes. June's face lit up for a moment. Robert took me to Santorini. It was magical, like walking through a postcard. The sunsets were unbelievable, the food was divine, and the villa was like a palace. Sounds heavenly, I murmured, trying to mask my envy. Robert really made it unforgettable, she continued, her eyes shining. He surprised me with a private yacht tour around the island and even arranged for a candlelit dinner on the beach. I smiled, genuinely happy for her, but somewhere deep within me, a gnawing unease persisted. The life she described seemed almost too perfect, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. As her best friend, it was my duty to watch over her and ensure that her happiness was genuine and not just a well-crafted illusion. A few weeks had passed since our last conversation, and my concern for June only grew stronger. With each passing day, I couldn't help but worry if the life she presented to me was merely a facade hiding a darker truth. Thus, I decided to pay her a surprise visit and check up on her in person. As I pulled up to their pristine white house, with its manicured lawn and towering oak trees, I caught a glimpse of Robert hastily leaving through the front door. Robert. I called out, stepping out of my car and waving at him. He barely acknowledged me, offering a curt nod before climbing into his sleek black sports car. He revved the engine, and within seconds, he sped away, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake. The coldness of his departure unsettled me, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. Under my breath as I approached the front door. My heart raced as I rang the doorbell, hoping to hear June's cheerful voice greeting me. But there was no response. I hesitated for a moment before ringing again, my worry mounting with each unanswered chime. The tension in the air was palpable as I fished out the spare key from under the doormat. My heart pounded in my chest, urging me to hurry as I unlocked the door and stepped into the grand house that Robert had purchased for June. June? I called out, my voice strained with anxiety. The knot in my stomach twisted even tighter as I made my way through the eerily silent house. Shadows played tricks on my eyes, making it difficult to discern whether or not June was hiding in a corner or slumped against a wall. Are you here? As I ventured further inside, I noticed that there were small signs of disarray throughout the otherwise immaculate house. A vase lay shattered on the floor near the entrance, its flowers strewn across the polished tiles. The living room showed signs of a struggle, cushions tossed about and a coffee table knocked over. Please be okay, I whispered, my voice cracking with emotion as I continued my search for my dearest friend. The kitchen was my next stop, and as I rounded the corner, the scene before me brought tears to my eyes. June was huddled on the cold kitchen floor, her knees drawn up to her chest, and her blonde hair tangled around her face. Her body shook with uncontrollable sobs, her blue eyes red-rimmed and swollen. June. I cried out, rushing to her side. She looked up, startled by my sudden appearance, and the pain etched on her features broke my heart. Hey, it's me, I said softly, reaching out to brush a strand of hair away from her tear-streaked face. What happened? Are you okay? Yes, I'm fine, she said, trying to force a smile that never quite reached her eyes. But I knew better than to believe her facade. We had been friends for far too long, and I could see right through her attempts to mask the truth. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, I couldn't help but notice the bruises that adorned June's once flawless skin with each encounter. She tried to hide them under layers of makeup and clothing, but they were undeniably there, a constant reminder of the shadowy truth lurking beneath the surface of her seemingly perfect life. For every bruise I saw, I wondered how many more were hidden beneath her clothes, and how much longer she could bear the weight of her secret. My heart ached for her, and I desperately wanted to find a way to help her escape the prison she seemed to be trapped in. The chill of the winter air bit at my cheeks as I stood on June's doorstep, my breath forming small clouds that drifted away into the evening. The unmistakable sound of a door unlocking broke the silence, and June appeared before me, her eyes red and puffy from crying. "Come in," she whispered, her voice barely audible as she stepped aside to let me enter. I followed her through the dimly lit hallway, my footsteps echoing off the hardwood floors. We settled onto the plush sofa in the living room, the warmth of the crackling fireplace doing little to thaw the air between us. "June, you have to tell me what's going on," I pleaded, my heart aching at the sight of the bruise on her cheek, partially hidden by a strand of her blonde hair. For a moment, I thought she would brush off my concerns again, but this time was different. Her resolve crumbled, and her voice quivered as she finally admitted the truth. "It's Robert. He's been hurting me, Jesus, June." I breathed, my stomach twisting into knots as the weight of her words sank in. Anger boiled beneath the surface, mingled with an overwhelming sense of helplessness. "How long has this been going on?" "Years," she confessed, her tears streaming down her face. "I tried to keep it hidden, but I can't do it anymore. June, you have to leave him," I implored, my voice strained with desperation. "This isn't love. You don't deserve this." She shook her head, her blue eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I can't. He'll find me. He always does." My fists clenched at my sides, frustration building as I struggled to find the right words to convince her. "We can get you help, June. There are people who can protect you, resources that can keep you safe. You don't have to do this alone. Promise me you won't tell anyone," she begged, her voice wavering. "I'm not ready to leave yet. I just need time, June. How much more time do you need?" I cried out, my heart breaking as I realized the depth of her fear. "How many more bruises and sleepless nights will it take before you're ready?" She looked away, unwilling to meet my gaze. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Just give me a little more time." My mind raced with 1,000 different arguments, but I could see the determination in June's eyes. She wasn't ready to let go of the life she had built, no matter how toxic it had become. "All right," I relented, my voice heavy with the weight of my decision. "But please, June, promise me you'll think about what I've said." She nodded, her tear-streaked face a haunting reminder of the reality she was living. As we sat there, the fire casting flickering shadows on the walls, I vowed to myself that I wouldn't let this be the end of our conversation. If June wouldn't save herself, I would do everything in my power to rescue her from the darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. A week later, I decided to take matters into my own hands. If June wasn't going to leave Robert, the least I could do was offer her a brief reprieve from her hellish reality. "June, let's spend a day together, just like old times," I suggested, my voice filled with hope. "Remember how we used to visit our favorite spots around town? Let's do that again." "Really?" she asked, her eyes lighting up at the idea. "You think that's a good idea?" "Of course," I replied, determined to push through any resistance. "Just one day, June. We both deserve it." She hesitated for a moment before nodding her agreement. "All right, let's do it." The following Saturday, we set out early in the morning, heading towards the quaint little cafe where we'd whiled away countless afternoons during our teenage years. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries enveloped us as we walked through the door, instantly transporting us back to simpler times. We spent hours there, reminiscing about our shared past and catching up on each other's lives. For once, June seemed genuinely happy, her laughter ringing out like a sweet melody as we traded stories and memories. My heart swelled with joy at the sight, knowing that for at least this one day, I had managed to pull her out of her self-imposed prison. But as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the familiar streets, I knew that our day of freedom was drawing to a close. As much as I wished I could keep June safe in this bubble of happiness, reality would soon come crashing back down upon us. My heart raced with anticipation and dread as I watched June hesitantly approach the front door. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a storm, and my intuition screamed at me to intervene, to protect her from the impending tempest. Unable to leave just yet, I lingered near a window, praying that everything would be all right. "Where the hell have you been?" Robert's booming voice echoed through the house, his anger palpable even from where I stood outside. My pulse quickened as I strained to hear June's response. "I was out with a friend," she answered, her voice firm but wavering ever so slightly. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating, as I imagined her standing her ground before him. "Without telling me?" he seethed, his tone venomous. "You think you can just come and go as you please?" I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. Damn it, why can't I do something? But I knew that barging in would only make things worse for June. "Robert, I'm sorry," June pleaded. "It was just a day out. It won't happen again." I could hardly believe what I was witnessing. The scene unfolding before me seemed more akin to a nightmare, but the sharp sting of reality left no room for doubt. June had barely managed to utter another plea when Robert's hand shot out with lightning speed, connecting with her face in a brutal slap that knocked her off balance. "Robert, please!" June cried, clutching her reddening cheek as tears welled up in her eyes. Her ears rang, the sound of her own heartbeat deafening as fear and pain pulsed through her veins. "Shut up," he roared, his voice echoing menacingly throughout their opulent home. Desperation fueled June's actions as she turned on her heel and sprinted for the stairs, hoping to put some distance between herself and her enraged husband. Every step felt like an eternity, each one accompanied by the frantic beat of her heart and the ragged breaths that escaped her lips. "Where do you think you're going?" Robert snarled, his fingers digging into her arm as he seized her from behind. Panic surged through her like a tidal wave, threatening to drag her under as she fought to free herself from his iron grip. "Let go of me!" June screamed, her voice cracking under the strain of terror and agony. But her cries fell on deaf ears, as Robert's other hand closed around her throat, squeezing tightly and cutting off her ability to breathe. "Stop!" I tried to scream, but my voice caught in my throat, choked by the horror of the situation. My mind raced, searching for a way to help my friend, but I felt paralyzed by fear and helplessness. "Please, Robert," June wheezed, her voice barely a whisper as her face turned a terrifying shade of purple. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Sorry isn't good enough." His grip on her throat only tightened, his eyes blazing with irrational jealousy and unbridled fury. Witnessing Robert's brutal actions towards June left me paralyzed with fear. My immediate instinct was to intervene and protect her, but the terror of his potential retaliation held me back. So, I remained outside, trembling as I dialed the emergency services and waited with bated breath. However, by the time the police finally arrived, it was tragically too late. I rushed inside the house in a state of sheer panic, calling out desperately for my friend. The sight that met my eyes was a horrifying one. June's lifeless body lay on the cold kitchen floor, a stark and chilling contrast to the life I had once known. "Damn it, June," I growled, frustration mingling with sorrow as hot tears streamed down my cheeks. "Why didn't you just listen? Why did you have to be so stubborn?" It was at that moment that I realized the depths of the darkness that had engulfed her existence. The police were now in pursuit of Robert, not just for the abuse but for the heinous crime of murder. The tragedy of her death would haunt me for years to come, a painful reminder of the fragility of life and the consequences of the choices we make. In the wake of this heart-wrenching tragedy, there are 5 crucial takeaways that we can all learn from June's story, such as 1. June's story serves as a stark reminder that abuse can happen in even the most seemingly perfect relationships. So it's crucial to seek help and support if they suspect any form of mistreatment, even if it's masked by material wealth or lavish gifts. 2. It is important to maintain connections with friends and family, as they can offer valuable perspective and assistance in times of trouble. 3. Don't be afraid to seek help when trapped in a cycle of abuse, as seeking professional help can be a lifeline in such situations. 4. Learn to trust your instinct, and if something doesn't feel right, it's essential to investigate and offer support, even if it means risking a difficult conversation. 5. Finally, June's tragic end underscores the importance of believing in the possibility of a better, abuse-free life, so it's important to know that escaping an abusive relationship is not easy, but it is possible.